Welcome to the Geek, the History Geek. I'm Mr. Hodges. Imagine being given a test question or a trivia question that asks this: who was the first president of the United States? Do you know the answer? Are you sure? You might be surprised. Stay with me as we explore this fascinating topic. Time to suit up. I love that. Well, I guess we ought to get started. When the British marched on Lexington and Concord in April of 1775, few would have predicted that that event would have marked the beginning of the Revolutionary War and the end of British control of their American colonies, stretching from New England to Georgia. Now, events would eventually lead to the Declaration of Independence being issued in July of 1776. So that's it, right? I mean, we're free? Not quite. A government would be needed to run things and to make important decisions. How would that be done? What rules would they follow? These would be important decisions that needed to be made, and the representatives of the Continental Congress for the colonies, now states, would begin to grapple with these issues as they attempted to fight a war against the strongest military power of that time. Finally, by November 15th, 1777, the Continental Congress had adopted the first Constitution of the United States, called the Articles of Confederation. This would finally be ratified by the final state, Maryland, in March 1st, 1781, almost 3 years past the deadline. Now, the Articles of Confederation called for a chair, which was a person to preside over the Congress. They would only serve a one-year term of office. By November of 1781, John Hanson, a Marylander, became that chair. He became the first president of the United States in Congress assembled under the Articles of Confederation government. Even George Washington recognized the significance of this moment. In a letter that he wrote to John Hanson on November 30th, 1781, where he congratulated his friend for being elected to the most important seat in the United States. It can be argued that this is a mere technicality because the Articles of Confederation did not have an executive branch, and thus the position was purely ceremonial, functional, and clerical. But I would argue that he was responsible for presiding over congressional sessions and that his contribution, specifically it was his leadership, that made his contributions important. John Hanson served from November 5th, 1781 until November 3rd, 1782. During his time of service, he was able to see the removal, with the exception of the British forces in New York City, all foreign troops from the American colonies. Under his leadership, in addition to having a census undertaken and securing loans from foreign allies for the war effort, they also introduced the Treasury Department, the first Secretary of War, the first Foreign Affairs Department, and also decided on the Great Seal of the United States. His efforts kept the fledgling nation together at two very critical junctures in which it could have fallen apart and ended our effort at becoming our own nation. He was also instrumental in the fight to guarantee the statehood of the soon-to-be-gained Western territories that lay beyond the Appalachian Mountains and that had been claimed by many of the original 13 colonies, now states. Among many of his official acts as president, he officially tendered the thanks of Congress for Washington's victory at Yorktown, and he was responsible for the appointments of Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, John Jay, and Henry Lawrence as the American team sent to Paris to negotiate peace with Britain. However, one of the things I found most interesting, in a trivial sort of way, is that John Hanson was not only responsible for establishing the custom of observing the 4th of July with the U.S. government under the Articles of Confederation, but he was also responsible for establishing Thanksgiving Day by issuing the first U.S. Thanksgiving Proclamation to be held on the fourth Thursday in November as a means to give thanks and to celebrate the country's most recent victories and accomplishments. The former president would die just over a year later on November 15th, 1783, at the age of 62. It is important to note that 7 other men would serve in this role as the President of the United States in Congress assembled until the Articles of Confederation was replaced by the U.S. Constitution. Although his burial place has been lost and he has nearly been forgotten by U.S. citizens today, and his important role has been ignored by many history books, John Hanson was important enough to be recognized with a statue that was placed in the U.S. Capitol building in 1903 to recognize his contributions. Visitors to the U.S. Capitol can still see a 7-foot, 3-inch statue today, located in the Hall of Columns, directly beneath the Hall of the House of Representatives. Now, I will admit that recognizing John Hanson as our first president is a technicality, and that honor should still go to President George Washington. It is important to note that John Hanson was the first man to help bring the country together, and to keep it together through some of its most difficult times. It was on his shoulders and on the foundation which he helped to build on which George Washington would stand and begin the task of securing and improving the United States, and for this reason, I feel that we owe John Hanson, first President of the United States in Congress assembled, a debt of thanks for his service to our country at such an important time in our history. This is a debt of thanks that is appropriate to recognize during the month of November, and for a holiday that he helped to set the precedent for the day of its observance, the fourth Thursday in November. Since the position had little power under the Articles of Confederation, and since he was the first person ever to serve in this role, it is amazing to see how much he was able to accomplish during his term, considering his very short time in office. I encourage you to share these facts with your friends and your family as we take this time to remember and to honor John Hanson, the first President of the United States, in Congress assembled. Now, I cannot possibly cover everything about John Hanson, so if you want to know more information about this important American, I urge you to research it for yourself. As always, if you like this video, I would encourage you to share it with others, and please vote for more history by giving it a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications for future videos. Well, that's all for now, so until the next time when I ask the question, did you know? I am Mr. Hodges, and this is the History Geek.